Next, another special News Radio WGNS broadcast. We're the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at WGNSradio.com.
This is the Blue Raider Podcast on WGNS, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. It's your all-access pass to everything Middle Tennessee sports. Game recaps, player spotlights, and the latest from the heart of Blue Raider Nation. Now, here's your host, Jake Bolden.
The Good Neighbor Network, WGNS, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, voted Tennessee's top station for excellence in broadcasting. Courthouse clock time, 6 o'clock. Now, Fox News.
Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Raider Podcast presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. It's been a couple weeks since you guys have heard from me. I'm excited to be back amidst all the madness that is spring fling this week here on WGNS, and of course the last couple weeks with baseball and their schedule and softball ending their season as well. So we've got so much to go over in today's episode, including baseball season's ending this week down in Kennesaw. We're going to do a little wrap up on all of spring sports one more time. We've got some more portal season updates for you on the hoop side of things. Men's basketball has gotten 2 signees since we last spoke. And then what does the betting market say about our upcoming football season? We've got so much to talk about in today's episode. I'm happy you're here to join us. But before we get into any of it, I've got to thank our presenting sponsor, Gold's Gym of Tennessee. Right now, they've got a new month-to-month pricing that's available online with no additional fees. The Gold membership is just $25 biweekly with a $40 enrollment, or you can even upgrade to the family plan for you and your significant other at $45 biweekly with only a $20 enrollment. The membership is going to give you access to all 16 Gold's Gym locations across Tennessee, along with group exercise classes and childcare. Again, all included at no hidden cost. So visit Gold's Gym in Tennessee online at goldsgym.com to learn more and find a location near you. Thanks again to Gold's Gym of Tennessee for sponsoring this podcast. If you're not already following the Blue Raider Podcast on our social media accounts, that's at Blue Raider Pod on X, Instagram, and Facebook, TikTok, and of course, where you may be listening to this, we typically do a live stream. Today's episode, we have some impending external things going on with spring fling and everything that it made the live stream of today's episode too difficult to pull off, but typically we would be doing a live stream over on our YouTube channel at Blue Raider Podcasts, so you don't want to miss that in upcoming weeks. Again, we are every Friday at 5 p.m. getting back into the swing of things here. It's going to take me some time to kind of figure myself back out. It's been 3 weeks since you guys have heard from me. Talking about baseball first and foremost. That's where our conversation was at last. We had Connor Smith joining us, previewing those last 2 series for baseball as they were getting closer and closer to just clinching a spot into the Conference USA tournament. Just get there. That was the mantra that me and Connor kept saying. Just get there, and crazier things have happened. Well, they did get there. They were able to pick up 1 win down in Miami. They went 1-2 down there. All things considered, FIU was playing for a spot in the Conference USA tournament as well. I wasn't under the impression that there would be such a large swing having a 6-game lead on FIU in the conference standings, but with 6 games left, there certainly was an opportunity. So MTSU going 1-2 down in Miami wasn't enough to fully clinch a position in the Conference USA tournament. They had to at least win 1 against Liberty, who going into that series is the number 2 team in Conference USA, or you needed FIU to lose a game to New Mexico State. Well, fortunately, MTSU won game 1 against Liberty last weekend, 8-1 in very convincing fashion. Actually gave you a little bit of a boost, thinking, hey, if we can take a series from the number 2 team in Conference USA, maybe we can make some noise down in Kennesaw. And also, all things considered, you were jockeying for position and maybe getting into a better pool. But they go 1-2. They dropped game 2 and 3 last week to Liberty. They get to Kennesaw this week, and they're in a pool with the number 1 seed, Jack State, and then the 6th seed, Western Kentucky. I think all things considered, that was probably the best pool for you. You played Jack State really well. Although you got swept early on in the season, it's hard to put too much stock into what happened in that series, but you led the majority of that series. So going up against Jack State, you felt really good because of all the top teams in the conference, including Liberty, who you did take a game from. But Louisiana Tech, Missouri State, you got swept. Really, none of those games were really that competitive. They did relatively well against Missouri State, but in my opinion, Missouri State is one of the better teams in Conference USA. But you got Jack State, and then you've got Western Kentucky, which is a series that you also went 1-2 a couple weeks, about a month out, and that was a series that you really let game 2 slip through your fingers. So you had an opportunity to take that series. So you're in a pool against 2 teams that you've played against relatively well all season long. And unfortunately for them this week, they have battling weather, much like we are here in Murfreesboro down in Kennesaw. They had to fight a lot of weather situations, and they faced Western Kentucky to kick things off and really came out flat from the get-go. And unfortunately for the situation, you couldn't afford that. You have to go 2-0. Being the 9 seed, the way that this pool play system is set up, you had to go 2-0. You really couldn't afford to go 1-1 because of tiebreakers would go to the top seed. So if you're the 9 seed, you have to go 2-0. Well, they laid an egg against Western Kentucky, just coming out really flat, really slow, not necessarily David Orr Jr.'s best game out the gates, but they kicked the ball around and they dropped that one 8-2. And then going to Thursday night against Jacksonville State, they dropped that contest 3-9. Really, in my opinion, a much better ball game. They led that game going into the 6th inning before giving up 2 runs. But a relatively good outing from Chandler Alderman just kind of gets soured. And then, of course, a 9th inning where Jack State puts up 5 runs and makes the game look as though it was never in reach. But the Blue Raiders were within 1 run for 8 innings, much like we've seen in their series against Jack State earlier this year. But when you play a team that's only lost 5 conference games all year, they've only lost 13 games on the season, they're an at-large team through and through, regardless of all the skepticism from the mid-majors and high majors about what mid-major teams will get in. Conference USA was a stout group this year, and I think Jacksonville State's going to be one of those teams that gets into the tournament regardless of what happens for the rest of this weekend down in Kennesaw. And same could be said, I think Liberty's in. I think Missouri State is in. I think if Dallas Baptist or Louisiana Tech were to win the conference championship this weekend, there's a world where you might see 4 Conference USA teams in the tournament, which is great for Conference USA. However, Dallas Baptist and Louisiana Tech are leaving the conference, so you are going to lose some powerhouse teams there. But nonetheless, Back to the topic at hand, the Blue Raiders will wrap up the season at 26-30, and they finished with a conference record, 26-31, and they finished with a conference record of 12-18. But if there's any good news coming out of this, it is that there was improvement. This team did make the conference tournament this year, but I still think a lot of people would agree with me that it was much to be desired. Entering conference play, this team was really riding at an all-time high, winning most of their series. They even had winning most of their series, even had wins against Murray State, who hosted a regional last year. The sweep against UAB kind of soured a little bit of that early season excitement, but then you opened it up with wins against Kennesaw, and again, you felt great going into your first road series in Conference USA at Missouri State, and of course they got swept there. The big storyline for me is going 4-18 on the road this year. Me and Connor talked about this in our episode about 3 weeks ago. I don't know that you look at the you can't. Baseball is a weird sport. You can't look at this and say they're just not a good road team. It's not the atmosphere. It's not like they're making these long road trips out of the way. They just, for whatever reason, they couldn't piece together wins on the road, and that includes like games against Missouri State, Jacksonville State, Louisiana Tech, Sam Houston, FIU. And when you hear that schedule, the top half is very loaded. You are playing against really, really good competition in Louisiana Tech, Jack State, and Missouri State. Those are three of the top 5 teams in Conference USA. But I don't know that you can make that excuse for the season in its entirety. I don't know how you clean those things up, how you address those things, because they're a really good team at home, going 22-11 at home. That's winning 67% of your games. So baseball is one of those sports that translates really well, no matter where you're playing. It's not like basketball where you're playing in a different atmosphere. Same with football. Football, you're playing in a different atmosphere. Baseball translates really well on the road. But for whatever reason, having a 67% win percentage at home and having a sub 20% win percentage on the road, not ideal. I don't know how you fix or address those things. But as you enter into this off season, the big topic we all had this last year was how many bodies are we actually going to return? And they returned really everyone of relevance, except they did not return Trace Phillips. And Trace was, as we all know, a big MLB prospect when the Tampa Bay Rays came knocking and signed him to an undrafted contract to go play minor league baseball. You can't blame the kid. But having Trace this year would have been huge, especially considering your ace pitcher, Drew Horn, was out for majority of the year with an ankle injury. So getting him back would have been a big deal. But nonetheless, you returned all your bats. And you returned 2 of your top 3 pitchers on your weekend rotation list. So now you're tasked again, if you're Jerry Myers, with what are you going to do this upcoming season? Well, unfortunately, you are going to be graduating some key contributors in the lineup. I'm looking at Tyler Minnick, who had a 43-game on-base streak this year. He's going to be graduating. You have your other catcher / first baseman, Dean O'Neill, who came in this year out the gates blazing hot, but he led the team in RBIs this year, had double-digit home runs, so you're going to miss his bat pretty significantly. And then your shortstop, Clay Badalak, is also going to be graduating. So those pieces are big. Clay is more of a defensive player. We had Matt Wolf, who was starting the season at shortstop, in my opinion, maybe a better hitter, but Clay is a lot more steady at the shortstop position than Matt was. So that you're missing that side of it, but you're missing 2 big bats in Tyler Minnick and Dean O'Neill. Now, Myers went out and got Dean O'Neill from Maine in the transfer portal this last year. Can you find somebody that can fill that void once again? The hardest thing is you're trying to fill in positions in catcher and first base. Those are hard to come by. I can only imagine in the space that is NIL and the portal season, but those are high value positions that Jerry Myers has got to go out and find somebody to replace. But in regards to the pitching staff, a lot of it is still going to remain intact. You're still going to be able to keep Chandler Alderman. David Horn Jr. is the other one that we'll talk about here in a second, who is going to be graduating. You're going to get Drew Horn back, and then the big thing is the backside of that bullpen is what you're going to be missing the most. How do you piece up another day one starter that David Horn Jr. was? David Horn Jr. was really the biggest surprise because everyone thought Drew Horn was going to be your number one pitcher, and he was, and then he got injured. And so David Horn Jr. took over that Friday spot and really never turned back. Arguably the best pitcher that we had all season long, especially out the gates. Chandler Alderman gave you great starts here and there, but they were shoddy. And so having a guy that was steady Eddie like David Horn Jr. on Fridays was a big piece to the success for this team. So how do you find someone else to replace that? And then on the backside of your bullpen, you're going to be retiring guys like Ollie Aikens, Landon Birch, Landon Sexton, those guys, Bryant Baranek. Those guys gave you great starts. Brian Baranek, especially in the midweek. So you've got to find guys that are able to fill those roles. Abel Albaron did really, really good this year in a few of his relief outings. Colin Kerrigan was great again in a few of his relief outings, but always seemed to find himself into some trouble. But turning that junior into senior year, that's a guy that I look to be really, really big for this team out of the bullpen next year as well. So there's a lot to look at. This team does graduate a good number of players and a lot of guys that contributed a lot. When I've spoken internally to what their expectation is, they already have one player, Matthew Porches, who entered the portal early. The portal isn't open yet, but he has already announced that he's going to be entering the portal. He did not pitch at all this year. He is from Walter State. Highly coveted recruit, just never really seemed to put it together when he got here to Murfreesboro, but he's already in the portal, and it's my understanding that they are expecting one, maybe two more guys to enter the portal. I have no news to report on who those guys are in specific, but I do want to report that they feel confident that this group is going to stay put, and that's huge, just given the bats that are coming back next year for what this team could put out on the field. But more importantly, if none of those two guys that they think are leaving are on the pitching staff, you would feel really good about returning at least Chandler Alderman and Drew Horn, and then trying to find your Sunday starter via the portal, or you're going to develop one of these guys that already have pitched maybe your midweek games like Albaron or Gavin King, or insert any of those kind of guys. So a lot to look forward to for baseball in the upcoming season. When we come back, we're going to get more into transfer portal season. Basketball has had 2 signees since we last spoke. We're going to be breaking down their game and much, much more. And of course, you don't want to miss our final segment. What does the betting scene think of our upcoming football season, and so much more? You don't want to miss this. You're listening to the Blue Raider Podcast presented by Gold's Gym in Tennessee.
At State Farm, when home and auto work as a team, you score and save money. I'm State Farm agent Andy Wama. Give me a call at 615-890-0850, and let's work together to win big by saving money on home and auto. With the service you get from State Farm, you might think our car insurance costs more. I'm State Farm agent Andy Wama. Give me a call at 615-890-0850, and let me show you with discounts up to 40%. You may find it even costs less.
Jennings & Ayers Funeral Home has served Murfreesboro families with compassion and care since 1880. As a family-owned funeral home, we're committed to honoring every life with dignity through traditional services, cremation options, and pre-planning that gives you peace of mind. For over 140 years, we've been here when it matters most. Visit JenningsandAyers.com. Jennings & Ayers Funeral Home, honoring life and comforting families since 1880.
This is the Blue Raider Podcast, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, 100.5 Smyrna, WGNSradio.com, and the Blue Raider Podcast YouTube channel. Now, back to your host, Jake Bolden.
Welcome back into the Blue Raider Podcast, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. We've got so much more hoops to talk about in the end of May. I know you're excited about it, much like I am. Men's basketball got 2 big signees since the last time we've had an episode, so we've got so much to talk about and where they stand as far as their off season. If you haven't already followed us on our social media pages at Blue Raider Pod, we're on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Blue Raider Pod, and of course, We typically do our live streams on Fridays at 5 p.m. Today's had some existential circumstances that made it impossible for us to do our live stream today on Friday, but normally you can hear us every Friday at 5 p.m. on our YouTube page at Blue Raider Podcast. But thanks to you for tuning in to us today on WGNS for our Friday upload. Last segment, we were talking about baseball and their portal season. What is that going to look like? They think they're going to be able to hold relatively steady over this offseason, but much could not be said about our basketball programs, more specifically the men's basketball program. But no worries, we got 2 more signees. It's been a couple weeks since we've talked about where men's basketball is at. So let's get another refresher, if you will. We had some graduations / portal entries. Your graduates were Trey Green, James Dent Jr., and Sean Smith. Then your portal entries and / graduates as well were Alec Oglesby and Kamari Lands. Those 2 graduated technically, but they also made an announcement that they would be entering the portal. I know that both of them were looking to get some sort of extension on their playing careers. It is my understanding that Alec Oglesby got that extension because a couple weeks ago he committed to Stetson, the school that he came to MTSU from. So I don't understand how he's able to get that extra year. He's been in college basketball for 6 seasons now. He's faced a lot of injuries over those years, and he's played games regardless over those years. But they still have granted him another year as of now to go play another year at Stetson. Kamari Lands is still in the portal, but he's played 5 seasons and has had no injuries. Well, he faced a little bit of an injury in the 2024-25 season here at MTSU, but he still played over half that season. So I don't know that he's going to get as lucky as Alec Oglesby was with his extra year, but he has entered himself into the portal, he has said. And then outside of non-graduating portal entries, you have Tori Alston, who is committed to VCU, Chris Loof, who has committed to Tulsa, and then you have Jared Hall, who's also in the portal, who entered very late into the portal, but he is also in the portal. And there was noted a couple weeks ago that he is receiving some interest from other mid-majors, but still hasn't made a commitment yet. And, of course, those guys can take all summer long if they want to make those commitments. Now that the portal's closed, they're free to do whatever it is that they want, even if that means coming back. And also coaching staff changes. Associate head coach Wes Long has taken a position with Casey Alexander up at Kansas State. So, to my knowledge, the basketball team is still without an associate head coach. I believe they have that listing up. I wouldn't be surprised if they were to promote from within. But that's definitely it's just something else to keep your eye on. Wes Long was a big part of Nick McDevitt. I spent 1 season as a coach with him down in Asheville, and then, of course, spent 8 seasons here in Murfreesboro with him. So a big loss on the coaching staff side of things. But Coach Nick McDevitt has been busy at work this offseason getting some signees to replenish this roster. You're going to be missing a lot of starters, really all of them, unless you consider Javin Carter, who did get some starting experience on that stretch. You're going to have to replace your entire starting roster. So guys that have already signed that are a part of this incoming class, you got 6'8" guard from Penn State, Eli Rice, the local guy from Gallatin, also played with Javin Carter up at Penn State. Caleb Seiler, he's a 6'10" center, junior from Gaston College, junior college, averaged 19 points, 10 rebounds per game. You've got Quinn Barnett, a D2 player coming in, 6'4" guard, averaged 14.5 points, a 41% three-point shooter. And then you have 2 freshmen, Aiden Bolden, a formerly local kid from Murfreesboro, but transferred down to Florida for his senior year of high school and is now coming back to Murfreesboro. He played at PCA for Coach Kerry Hammonds, won a state championship there. But in his final season down in Florida, he averaged 12 points, 8.5 rebounds per game. And then your other freshman from IMG Academy, a 4-star, Landon Collier, 6'6", small forward, ranked as a top 50 small forward in the country. So 2 big freshmen coming in for you. Now, the 2 additions that we haven't talked about because they've happened since our last episode, the first would be Kevin Dukovicic, who is a 6'4" junior guard from North Alabama. He is from Canada, but at North Alabama this last year, he had 12 points per game, shooting at 34% from three, a guy that has spent 2 seasons in North Alabama, but a big contributor for him this last year. North Alabama, not necessarily a great team this last year, I think only winning 9 games, but he started 25 games for them this year. So that's a big addition, especially in the backcourt, someone that has a lot of playing experience and can score the basketball. And at this level, this is what you need. You need people that can score the basketball. On the other side is Karis Bilal. I believe I'm saying that right. Going off of his University of Louisiana media guide, it's Bilal. But he is a 6'3" point guard. He is coming in as a redshirt sophomore. Out of high school, he went to Atlanta, Georgia, and he was a top 20 point guard in the country, according to On3. He was 26, according to 24/7 Sports. So a highly regarded point guard out of Atlanta, Georgia, where he scored over 2,800 points. He was the Georgia's 6A leading scorer for 3 of his 4 years in high school. So this kid, very, very talented. Well, out of high school, he signed with Vanderbilt in 2024-25. He sat out that entire season, took a redshirt season at Vanderbilt, entered the portal, and then went to Louisiana, or as I like to call them, Louisiana Lafayette, which I know that they would not appreciate me calling them that, but that's what I grew up and that's what I know. But he was a raging Cajun this last year. For them, however, he played in a majority of their games, 21 games, but he started in 5, averaging 21 minutes a night, so still a contributor for them. Averaged 5.5 points per game, just over 2 rebounds, good steals numbers, a relatively tough shooting numbers, I'll be honest. It's just shooting at 32% from the floor, 27% from 3, and a 79% free throw shooting. So the game so far from his scoring days in high school hasn't translated to the college game, but again, that can mean a multitude of things. And so nonetheless, you have someone that you know has scoring ability coming to this roster. Now, when I'm looking at this roster in totality, you've got 15 bodies. The only question mark I have on my list is Savon Weichel, who was a transfer this last year, didn't play due to injury, if he's going to be granted and they're going to keep him on roster. If he does, that gives you 15 players on your roster. Your guards are Javon Carter, MJ Whitlock, Charvez Ambrose, Jax Howard, Savon Weichel, Quinn Barnett, Eli Rice, Kevin Dukovicic, and then Karis Bilal. That gives you a healthy backcourt. Your front court, however, is Luka. Then you've got Brennan Olumu. You got Landon Collier, the freshman, Aiden Bolden, the freshman, and then you've got the new signee, Caleb Seiler, who's coming in as a junior. Very thin front court. Now, all things considered, that's been about the depth of the front court in years past, but a lot of these guys, actually all of these guys, aren't necessarily scoring threats. When you're looking at replacing this last year's roster, the 4 spot was Torrey Alston, a guy who was, talk about being a steady Eddie for you. We were talking about David Horn Jr. for baseball. This guy was someone you could always depend on. If he wasn't scoring the basketball, he was doing all the other intangibles really, really well. When I look at the starting lineup today, it could be anybody, but I think you feel really comfortable about Javon Carter being your starting point guard. I like MJ Whitlock and his development at the 2 guard. Eli Rice has the length that you could. He's 6'8". He played guard at a Big Ten school, but he has a length that he could definitely play the 4. I have him slotted at a 3, but he could play the 4. I would think that what Nick McDevitt's going to do with that spot just really depends on how these guys work together over this offseason. But you got Luka playing the 5. That one's I think a given. Your 2 absolutes are going to be Carter at the 1 and Luka at the 5. But who fills into that 2, 3, 4 spot? Well, again, the backcourt is super healthy. I think with this signing class in particular, Nick McDevitt had made comments throughout the year that something that the best teams in this conference had, i.e. Liberty, was they just had scores. They were able to afford players that could score the basketball. A lot of the conference was made of just defensive giants that would beat up on one another, and Liberty could always hang their hat on their offense. Well, I think a big part of this year was finding guys that could just score the basketball. Again, Eli Rice, a 40% three-point shooter. Quinn Barnett, 15 points per game, 41% three-point shooter. Dukovic, 12 point per game. He was 34% from three. By law, 2,800 points in high school. Freshman Aiden Bolden, 12 points per game. Landon Collier, 4-star small forward, a guy that averaged double digits per game. Caleb Seiler, 19 points per game. I think he's willing to take risk on guys that he knows can score the basketball, and believes in himself and his coaching ability, and to instill any sort of defensive coaching that he needs to anybody. I think that his philosophy, which all things considered had a really good defense this last year for Conference USA, so I would believe in that as well. Someone who I think had struggled on the defensive end was Javon Carter coming into this last year, and he was in situations where he had to guard the opposing team's best scorer late in games at the end of the season. So I think that type of development we've seen on the defensive side of the basketball for Coach Nick McDevitt makes him feel more confident and taking a risk on guys that can just shoot, guys that can score the basketball, because defense is something that we can teach in-house here. So this group, I think collectively, if that was his goal, was just to find guys that he knows can score the basketball, and we will just teach them defense when they get here, I think that that's going to work out particularly well. My only I see foreseen issue is the log jam in the backcourt with so many talented guys that particularly have point guard experience, but again, teaching these guys how to play the 2 and 3. We see like MJ Whitlock, who coming in from Cali Junior College last year didn't have much experience playing the 2 or the 3 and kind of had a slow transition period. But we see at the end of the year how many strides he's made at playing the 2-3 guard position. So how do guys like Quinn Barnett fit into this piece where they're a point guard coming in, but they're going to be relied on to be something else? Same with Bill All. He'll be one of the younger guys in this backcourt, but still someone that has a lot of experience being a point guard. How does he fit into playing time not being a point guard? Potentially, but I know McDevitt, myself included, love Javon Carter, and it's hard to keep him off the floor, but at some point someone does, and so it is nice having guys that have point guard experience like Quinn Barnett, like Kovacic and Bill All. So I think that's not as much of a problem as maybe I'm leading it on to be. But back on the front court, who do you have playing the 4? Luka's going to be great at the 5. Olumu, if he bounces back from injury this year, do you expect him to get a lot of time? Do you put in Landon Collier or Aiden Bolden, the 2 freshmen? Caleb Seiler, I think, is going to be great. Him and Luka. The thing about Seiler I love is his physicality, something that we missed a lot with Chris Loof. At times he had that physicality that you needed, but this kid, Caleb Seiler, when you watch his tape back, this kid is as physical as they come. A lot of his scoring is at the rim because he's able to jockey for position where he wants to be and making the easy buckets, and that's his job. So I'm excited about what he brings to the table, and again, this 1-2 tandem punch with Luka. I don't know that he could play the 4 along with Luka. I think that those two guys are centers, so he's still got to find someone out of that. Brandon Olomu, Landon Collier, and Aiden Bolden, and maybe someone like Eli Rice could slide down at 6'8" and play the 4 forward position for you. So when we come back after the break here, I've been looking forward to talking about football once again. We talked about it last week with Connor Smith, what to look forward to for this upcoming season now that spring practice is over. This next portal window is going to be opening. What do we expect from basketball? What does the betting markets say about Derek Mason and his upcoming 3rd season here in Murfreesboro? We're going to be talking all about that. We'll be back after this break. You're listening to the Blue Raider Podcast presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee.
Branches is not only a place to go to find help for mental, emotional, and behavioral issues. Branches Wellness is here to provide help in losing weight and in medication management. Branches believes in body, soul, and spirit, ministry, and care for the whole individual. Branches, the place to turn to find hope and healing in the midst of a hurting and sometimes difficult world. Go to branchescounselingcenter.com or 615-904-7170.
First Shot transforms Rutherford County youth. Coach Andy Herzer leads dynamic basketball camps and clinics, building skills and character since 2003. Kids dive into exciting STEM projects, sparking creativity through hands-on coding, art, and dance. They elevate their mind, spirit, and body in summer and winter programs. Visit firstshottn.org today to learn more. First Shot, where kids gain, elevate, and develop.
Next on All Sports Talk, it's the Blue Raider Insider Report with Chip Walters of Exit Realty, Bob Lamb & Associates.
Well, good Friday afternoon, everybody. Middle Tennessee baseball fell in the second game of pool play at the Conference USA Baseball Championships to Jacksonville State 9-3. The loss, which marks the end of the Blue Raider 2026 baseball campaign, was plagued by delays before the first pitch because of a lightning delay. That pushed the game to a 3:10 p.m. start compared to the original 12:30 p.m. first pitch. Once the Lightning passed over Mickey Dunn Stadium on the campus of Kennesaw State, the Blue Raiders found record-breaking power in the batter's box. Brett Von Dolen and Cooper Clapp came together to power 2 home runs to tie and break Middle Tennessee's program record for home runs in the BB Core era. Von Dolen's opposite field long ball, which was the 7th of his redshirt junior campaign, tied the record set in 2024 at 72. Likewise, Clapp's blast towards the Waffle House along the street in right field broke the record with home run number 73. It also gave the Blue Raiders a 3-2 lead with Lane Akers scoring while Clapp's 12th tank of the year. By the numbers, the total time for the game was just 2 hours and 40 minutes. Brett Von Dolen's home run total was 29 for his college career, and Cooper Clapp's run marked the 73rd Blue Raider home run of the season. Well, it is the end of the road for the 2026 Blue Raider baseball season. All right, track and field. 5 Middle Tennessee athletes will compete in the first round of the 2026 NCAA Outdoor Track and Field Regionals from May 27th through May 30th. That will be next week in Lexington, Kentucky. Mustafa Bachman will compete in the 100-meter and 200-meter events at the Outdoor Track and Field Regionals. At the Conference USA meet, he achieved a personal best of 9.94 seconds in the 100 and also had a time of 20.26 in the 200. Moses Lecoque will be there. Chidinma Agu and Privilege Chikara all set to compete next week in Lexington. Men's golf, redshirt senior Carter Manath closed out his college career with a final round 6 over par 77 on Wednesday at the NCAA Columbus Regional at the Ohio State University Golf Club's Scarlet course. The Texarkana, Texas native finished the tournament at 13 over par 226 across 54 holes, tying for 41st place. Manath capped off a stellar redshirt senior campaign that included first-team All-Conference USA honors, 2 Conference USA Golfer of the Week awards, and an individual title at the Sandestin Collegiate Classic. And a final note in soccer, Middle Tennessee has signed Ania Denham to the 2026 roster. According to Aston Roden, a native of Wales, Denham will join the Blue Raiders following a successful stint with the Sporting Khalsa and the Wales national teams. That's it for today. Remember the reason for Memorial Day weekend before you go to the lake or the pool. Remember the sacrifices that were made by those defending our freedoms. Have a great weekend, everybody.
This is the Blue Raider Podcast, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, 100.5 Smyrna, WGNSradio.com, and the Blue Raider Podcast YouTube channel. Now, back to your host, Jake Bolden.
Welcome back to the Blue Raider Podcast, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. Happy to have you guys back. We had a brief hiatus, 3 weeks, with the craziness of the spring season. Of course, you got spring fling going on this week. You've still got local teams. Eagleville's playing for a softball championship on Saturday. Have a baseball championship today. Stewart's Creek also playing for a state championship tomorrow as well. So I'm happy you're able to take a little break from the high school sports to talk Blue Raiders with me today on this beautiful Friday. If you're not already following us on our social medias at Blue Raider Pod, that's on Instagram, that's on Facebook, TikTok, and then our live stream on Fridays at 5 p.m. on YouTube at Blue Raider Podcast. This final segment, I love to go over just a bunch of headlines to kind of recap everything that's happened since we've been here. We wrapped up a lot of our spring sports. There's still a few things looming as far as track and field goes, but our golf finished. Isabella Johnson, she competed at the regionals as an individual for the women's golf team. Came out the gates hot, tied for first place, but she missed the cut for the national championships. And then this last week, Carter Maneth competed at the Columbus Regional for men's golf as an individual, and he finished in 41st place, missing the cut for the national championships as well. So great career from Carter Maneth, too. Listed as a redshirt senior. This will be his last year in Murfreesboro. A really decorated career for the guy. Most notably, his first team all-conference honors this year, but he won 2 Conference USA Golfer of the Week awards and even won an individual title at Sandestin Collegiate Classic this year. So a great career from Carter Maneth. Much appreciated to him. Also of note, you have the track and field. Like I said, they wrapped up their Conference USA Championship this last week, and they actually have 5 individuals who will be competing. If you didn't already see it, Mustafa Bakpin getting a program record in the 100-meter, but also set the lead 100-meter for all of NCAA this year. So it's a 9.94 in the 100 meters. He even met the Olympic qualifying standard, set a new Conference USA meet record. So he's going to be competing in that in the regional. And then later he also got gold in the 200 meters. So he's competing in 2 events. You got Moses Lokiki, who competed in the 10K meter at the regionals after getting first in the Conference USAs this last week. Joel Ahit Kolam competed in the triple jump at regional after finishing 3rd in the Conference USA. Chidinima Agu will be competing in the 400 meter. She finished 2nd in the Conference USA Championships. And then Privileged Shikara is going to be competing in the 800 meter, who also placed 2nd place for the women in the Conference USA Championship. So you've got 5 competing this next week, starting with Bakpin with his 100 and 200 meters on Wednesday. Then you've got the women's 400, which is Chidima and Privilege on Thursday. And then Friday is your triple jump with Joel. So looking forward to what they do, what those 5 individuals do at the regional in Lexington, Kentucky this next week. And, of course, we'll give you an update when we can in next week's episode on Friday. Our last segment here, again, quick headlines, going over it. If you didn't see this last week, DraftKings released their updated win-loss expectations for the upcoming season, and MTSU was on there with the rest of Conference USA, and I was able to talk with Connor 3 weeks ago what our expectations were for this year. I believe Connor had them at 4 wins. They could potentially get to 5 wins. I still feel that that's probably where this team is at. However, I did not anticipate that the betting scene to believe that we were over that limit. They have the over-under set for MTSU this year at 3.5 wins, and it's an odds-on favorite to be under that. A lot of the money is moving to the under 3.5. So the scene outside of Murfreesboro, as much as I still consider myself a pessimist on the football team at this time, the national spotlight is even down lower. So going back to this new schedule, now that we know that Louisiana Tech will not be returning for the 2026 football season, where does this team find their wins? Well, they open the season up with an FCS opponent. Now, we know they've struggled in the last 2 years under Derek Mason with opening game against FCS opponents, but Missouri State is one that I don't think that they would struggle with. This is a program that has put all their money into basketball and has not invested hardly at all into football. Very, very bad football program there. So I think they get out the gates fine against Missouri State, where you get into these swing games and really deciphering if this team is going to be competitive not only in the season landscape but in Conference USA. They go to Marshall, and then they have a home game against Nevada, and then they go to Jacksonville State. So that's their week 2, 3, 4 matchup. Nevada was one of their few wins this last year. If you remember, it was a late come from behind Nick Vadiato late touchdown that took them over the edge there in Reno. Marshall was a game here at home that they made a switch to Carlos Del Rio Wilson, and he took flight here in Murfreesboro and really took flight for the rest of the year for Marshall last year. So they found a lot of success at quarterback there. What does this Marshall team look like again this year, going on their second year with their head coach? And then Jacksonville State is your first Conference USA opponent, who many are thinking is the favorite to win Conference USA this year. They return their quarterback. They're going to have to find a replacement for their all mid-major running back, one of the top rushers in America last year. So they're going to find a replacement there, but I don't think they're going to have an issue finding a replacement there at Jacksonville State. So you're going to get arguably the best team in Conference USA out the gate. I think best case scenario, you start the season 3-1. I don't think that this team is competitive with Jacksonville State, particularly on the road, but I don't think that they would be competitive. So best case scenario, you get wins against Murray, Marshall, Nevada. I think more likely you would go 2-2. I don't think Nevada is very good this year, once again, but you do have the valuable playing them at home. But going to Marshall and Jacksonville State could be difficult early on. Then week 5, you go to Kansas, and then you get a 10-day break-ish until you get into your midweek Conference USA season, which is at home against Delaware. Then you get a week rest. You're in Miami against FIU, and you get 8 days rest, and you're back home against Kennesaw State. This is the part of the season where, again, I think you're either going to turn a corner or you're going to take a step back. Because if you're going to lose at Kansas, you're going to be entering this in best-case scenario 3-2, more likely 2-3. Delaware is returning the most production of any Conference USA team this last year, and they surprised a lot of people, particularly with their quarterback play. So I think Delaware is a big question mark for how good they can be. I think that this team has a high floor, but I don't know that their ceiling is necessarily very high. So getting them at home is going to be great, and also not having to go up to Delaware, up to Newark sometime in November when it's icy and snowing. So that's a positive. Then you have Miami, who of all the Conference USA teams isn't necessarily the biggest home atmosphere, but you're going down to Miami to face a new and improved FIU team, and then Kennesaw State, your regular season champions from a season ago at home. If you were able to steal 2 games in that midweek swing with Delaware, Kennesaw State, FIU, I think you feel really, really good about your potential to get to a bowl game this year, because coming out of that 3-game swing, you get a bye week technically, and your final 4 games of the year is homecoming on the November 7th against Western Kentucky. Then you have a road game at Liberty, and then a road game at Sam Houston, and then you wrap up the season at home against New Mexico State. The 2-game swing with Western and Liberty, I just don't think that this team is to the level to compete with them yet. Sam Houston on the road is interesting, a team that I think Phil Longo is a good coach. Year 1 did not go to expectation, but that university and his program were fighting with having to travel 45 minutes from campus to play a home football game. Not a lot of fan support, but they're going into a new stadium this year. Like I said, Phil Longo giving him a year to kind of get his feet underneath him. I think that team has a lot of potential. So who are they when you play them at the end of the season? And then Tony Sanchez, New Mexico State at the end of the year. I think that program they're kind of a lost cause. Tony Sanchez has never been a successful college football coach. I don't think he's had a winning season, even going back to his years at UNLV. And now here at New Mexico State, many fans that I know of in Las Cruces are already putting him on a hot seat. So is this the year that he turns things around? I mean, they were a few drives away last year from being a team that gets to 6 wins, but it kind of leaned on some demons that is bad quarterback play for them that really made last year difficult for them. So can New Mexico State right their ship late in the year? Who's to say? But you end the year with 2 winnable games on paper with Sam Houston and New Mexico State. So all that to say, if I was being an optimist here, you could get to there is an easy path to 6 wins here. Your easier games are Murray State, Nevada. You got Delaware at home, Sam Houston, New Mexico State. That's your easy path to 6 wins. But you have to win those swing games. And I'm looking at Sam Houston. I'm looking at Delaware. I'm looking Nevada. I'm looking at Marshall. If a few of these games just go your way, things could turn around for a positive for you. And you're not just talking about, hey, can we get to 4 wins this year? Hey, can we get to 6? Can this team get to a bowl game? I feel confident with Roman Gagliano at quarterback. I think that they have a lot of weapons on the outside for him. The offensive line, we've been told, looks much improved this year. Can they stay healthy? Are they much improved this year? Is the defensive front able to replenish a lot of the guys that they're missing from last year that graduated? There's a lot of question marks for this team. Spring practice looked good, but there's only so much you can tell in spring practice. We'll really have an idea of how good this team is when fall camp opens up later this year in August. So we'll certainly be keeping tabs on it. The betting market being at 3.5 means nothing to anybody ever, but it does let you know what does the national spotlight think of MTSU and their football program. And right now, a lot of people they're negative on the 3.5 win total, and the betting favorite is on the under of 3.5. So I'll hold steady at 4 wins. Again, when I lay eyes on this team and they see what the new offensive coordinator Selfo does for them. Someone who loves to run the football. So there's a lot to be excited about, be optimistic about, but it's been year 3. You just want to see some of those changes, and coming out the gates great against Murray State on September 5th would be a great way to at least win back a little bit more of that optimism. But that'll do it for our episode today. Thanks again to you for tuning in to another episode of the Blue Raider Podcast. If you're not already following us on our socials, make sure you're doing that at Blue Raider Pod, X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And if you're going to tune into our live streams, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss another one of those. Thanks to my producer, Jackson Smith, for today's episode. You're listening to the Blue Raider Podcast presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee.
Hey folks, it's Chip Walters from Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates, helping Middle Tennessee make smart moves in a fast-moving market. Whether you're buying, selling, or just exploring your options, you deserve someone who knows this community and treats your goals like their own. From first-timers to long-time homeowners, I'm here to guide you with clarity, confidence, and a steady hand. When you're ready to make the next move, start with someone you trust. Visit ChooseChip.net and let's make your 2026 move the right move.
First Shot transforms Rutherford County youth. Coach Andy Herzer leads dynamic basketball camps and clinics, building skills and character since 2003. Kids dive into exciting STEM projects, sparking creativity through hands-on coding, art, and dance. They elevate their mind, spirit, and body in summer and winter programs. Visit FirstShotTN.org today to learn more. First Shot, where kids gain, elevate, and develop.
When illness or injury turns everyday moments into uphill battles, there are medical professionals who step in with skill, compassion, and unwavering dedication. My name is Joey P. I'm CEO of Murfreesboro Medical Clinic, and we are proud to highlight this month's MMC Heart for Healing recipient.
We recognize Dr. Sean Horowitz, a surgeon at MMC, whose reputation is built on as much his heart as it is his hands. Dr. Horowitz makes every patient feel like his priority. Whether performing complex robotic surgery or providing life-changing breast care, he combines elite technical precision with a rare, compassionate touch that truly defines him. Dr. Sean Horowitz, our MMC Heart for Healing.
If a doctor, nurse, or medical professional has made a difference in your life, tell WGNS. Help us recognize the medical heroes in our community by nominating them for the MMC Heart for Healing Award, and help us recognize the medical heroes in our community.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Steve DeSager.
Game 3 of the NBA's West Final comes up at San Antonio tonight as the Spurs host Oklahoma City with the series tied at a game apiece. Tip-off after 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Still awaiting the injury report on Dylan Harper of San Antonio. Game-time decision with a hip injury. And the Spurs' De'Aaron Fox, who missed the first 2 games with a sore ankle, is a game-time decision. The East Finals continue Saturday night. The league's all-defensive team is being named this evening. 3 WNBA games tonight. And in the NHL, Game 2 of the West Final, Vegas, which took the opener, plays at Colorado again. Si Woo Kim shot a second-round 60 at the Byron Nelson. He leads by 5 strokes. In baseball, St. Louis at Cincinnati rained out. They'll have a doubleheader on Saturday. Houston won 4-2 over the Cubs, who've lost 6 straight. And the Cleveland Guardians have won 6 in a row. They are scoreless tonight at Philadelphia in the bottom of the 5th.
Holden Hardware has been serving the hardware needs of this community since 1948. This is Raleigh Holden Jr. I want to thank our many customers who have helped to keep us in business all these years. I also want to invite those who may be new to this community or have not been in the store lately to visit us. Come experience a unique hardware buying atmosphere with wood floors, old furniture and fixtures, along with a helpful and knowledgeable sales staff. Holden Hardware on the west side of the public square since 1948.
It's a Slick Pig barbecue, spicy wings and Brunswick stew, everything made fresh for you at the Slick Pig barbecue. There's lean smoked turkey and chicken too, ribs so tender don't need to chew. Well, come on folks, I'm telling you, it's a Slick Pig barbecue. In 1920 East Main, you're gonna love the pig.
The Slick Pig barbecue, a Murfreesboro tradition.
People are putting hardwood throughout the whole house.
Andrew Young with City Tile and Floor Covering.
Most people are taking carpet out of bedrooms and adding hardwood.
Murfreesboro City Tile and Floor Covering can add wow to your home.
Make your house a wow house, City Tile and Floor.
The most popular are these light, natural, cooler colors.
Andrew Young.
Hard surface throughout the whole home and less carpet.
City Tile and Floor Covering, 223 South Spring Street.
This has been the Blue Raider Podcast on WGNS, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee, your all-access pass to everything Middle Tennessee sports. Follow the show on social media at Blue Raider Pod on X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Plus, subscribe to the Blue Raider Podcast YouTube channel.
The Good Neighbor Network, WGNS, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, voted Tennessee's top station for excellence in broadcasting. Courthouse clock time, 6 o'clock. Now, Fox News.
Has been marked by declassifying millions of pages of government files on the assassinations of President Kennedy and his brother, former Attorney General Robert Kennedy. She also released files she says shows Obama administration officials politicized intelligence about Russian election interference. A former member of Congress, Gabbard ran for president as a Democrat in 2020. At the White House, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
At least 16 people are hurt in a fire and explosion at a shipyard on New York City's Staten Island. The New York Fire Department says at least 3 have been injured seriously. Crews responded to the fire when a major explosion occurred at the site roughly 50 minutes later. No word on any fatalities. America's listening to Fox News.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-478-6430 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-478-6430. That's 800-478-6430. What do you have to lose? Call 800-478-6430. Again, 800-478-6430.
Kevin Warsh has been sworn in as the 17th chair of the Federal Reserve. Fox Business Network's Connor Hansen reports at least one Fed governor does not think cutting interest rates is the best way to go.
Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller made comments shortly before that ceremony saying it would be, quote, crazy for the Fed to contemplate cuts in the near future. Central bankers say some policy firming might be appropriate if inflation persistently stays above that 2% target rate. Warsh begins his first term as the conflict in Iran puts upward pressure on prices.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio meets with foreign ministers from all 30 NATO countries. Here's Fox's Julian Turner in Sweden.
This comes at an incredibly sensitive moment. The alliance, we all know, facing intense strain over the war in Iran. One thing, though, everybody here seemed to really agree on is the need to get the Strait of Hormuz back open again. As Rubio met with NATO, Pakistani leadership arrived in Tehran. Rubio crediting the Pakistanis with being the go-between in U.S.-Iran talks since they started. Another big topic on the agenda, President Trump's decision to forward deploy 5,000 U.S. troops to Poland. This after pulling that same number back from Germany just a short time ago.
A human smuggling case against illegal immigrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia tossed by a judge today. Abrego Garcia's lawyers claimed that both the timing of the criminal charges and inflammatory statements about him by top Trump officials demonstrated the prosecution was vindictive. The judge wrote the administration would not have brought the case if Abrego Garcia had not been returned following his mistaken deportation to El Salvador. He became a lightning rod in the debate over mass deportation. SpaceX launching its biggest, most powerful Starship yet on a test flight today, an upgraded version that NASA is counting on to land astronauts on the moon. I'm Tom Rigotti. This is Fox News.
Got